Hello everyone, and welcome to today's tutorial on declaring and initializing single-dimension arrays in C++. To show code examples, we'll be using rextester.com, which is a free online app that allows you to create and to test code without having to download anything. The language again is C++. We'll be using GCC rather than the other varieties of C++. If you haven't already done so, please check out the link in the description for a free 10-hour course. It's a fantastic course that has everything you need to start coding. You can also learn more about us and take more courses at mammothinteractive.com. Again, a link is provided in the description. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, arrays are basically lists of objects. We can have integer arrays, which will give you a list of integers. We can have string arrays, which will give you a list of string, or in some case we can have a mixture of the two. We'll start off by looking at integer arrays. So you remember from our integer declaration video, declaring an integer was as simple as doing this. We have an integer I, note of type integer, and we haven't assigned it a value. Now in this case we'll be doing an array, so let's call it something more appropriate such as myArray. However, this is still an int right now, not an int array. So what we need to do is we need to add these square brackets on the end of our array name. This symbolizes that this is an array of integers rather than just one variable of type integer. Now we haven't given this a size or any substance. Let's give it a size first. Let's say 3 elements in this array. Again, this has just created an array of 3 integers, but seeing as we haven't specified as to which integers will be in the array, the C++ compiler populates the array with 3 zeros. However, zeros are boring, so let's go ahead and add some values in. So what we want to do is we want to open up the curly brackets to enter our values in, and let's do 1, 2, and 3. Let's just keep things simple. Now, what we've done here is we have created our array right here, my array of 3 elements, and we know those elements are integers. And now we've populated the array with these 3 integers, 1, 2, and 3. Now, as arrays start at 0, we have element 0 is a 1, element 1 is a 2, and element 2 is a 3. Now let's just check that the compiler is doing exactly what we want it to. So we'll access one element of the array and print it out. Let's just access the very first element. Now we do this by calling myArray, which is the name of our array, and we specify which element we want to access, which in this case is element 0. Let's go ahead and scroll down. We'll click Run It, and the compiler recognizes it properly, and the console prints out a 1, which is exactly what we want, because we're asking for the very first element, which happens to be a 1. Now let's just check that things are still working properly. We'll access the very last element, which is 2. And we get a 3 printed out, which is exactly what we want, as the last element is a 3. Now, let's take a look at arrays of strings. So similar to declaring just one string, we will start off with standard string, and let's call this string array. This time, however, the square brackets again, because we want to create an array of strings rather than just a single string. And very similar to the above integer array, we may as well populate it because an array of empty strings is a little boring. So let's open up the brackets there. We'll have our first string be mammoth, and our second string be interactive. We haven't specified the size. It's not necessary to, but for the sake of this video, let's keep things simple and we'll say it's 2 elements long. So now instead of myArray, we want to access stringArray, and let's access the very first element. If all goes well, we should have Mammoth being printed out. And excellent, the console has printed out the word Mammoth, which is the first element of our string array. Just to check that things are still working properly, we'll print out the second element, and we get interactive, which is excellent. So, the last item on the agenda will be modifying a single element in an array. Now let's go back to the integer array example. Let's say we no longer want 2 as our second element. Let's say we want to replace 2 with 5. So let's go ahead and do that in our main function, because the main function is where basically most of the interesting stuff happens. So we want to go ahead and modify the second element, so we'll say myArray element 2, which in this case will be myArray1, and we'll assign it the value of 5. And we are no longer accessing string array, we're accessing myArray, and let's print out element 1. So if the change did indeed work, we should have a 5 being printed out instead of a 2. Let's scroll down to the bottom, we'll hit run it, and we get the 5. Excellent. So now you know how to create, initialize, and declare integer and string arrays, access individual elements of each array, and modify a single element in any of the arrays. Well, thanks again for watching today's tutorial on initializing and declaring single-dimensional arrays in C++. Please like the video and subscribe, and feel free to share any feedback in the comments below. Again, there is a link to a free 10-hour course in the description. It's an excellent course, and I strongly urge you to try it out. See you next video.